we're going to get on to the Ubisoft press conference. Quite a fair bit to talk about this. It wasn't really, my criticisms with this conference weren't really the choices that they made during the conference, but just the games that they did show, just problems I had with them. But let's get into the positives first with this conference. First off, I have Far Cry 5 written down here. Everybody knows I love the Far Cry games. Far Cry 1, 2, and 3, great games for me personally. Far Cry 4 kind of fell off, the bandwagon by being way too similar to Far Cry 3, and Far Cry Primal was just so damn forgettable. It was just horrible. But Far Cry 5 seems to be heading down the right road. I am still skeptical about, the whole co-op orientation around the game. It does have me worried that the story will not be as good as Far Cry 3's, which is something I really loved about the third game. So fingers crossed the co-op doesn't, force the game to make compromises for its story, but the gameplay of it looks amazing. I really am interested by the religious, aspects of the game, and yeah, it just looks very, very interesting. Certainly seems like, again, it'll be divisive when it comes out, just in terms of the media. Beyond Good and Evil 2 was also finally announced at the Ubisoft press conference. It looked very cool. All we saw was a CGI trailer, but it looked very, very cool. For me personally, I've never played the original Beyond Good and Evil, so I can't really say a whole lot about it, but I just thought that the CGI trailer they looked was really, really cool. Definitely seems very, very interesting to me. Definitely caught my attention. We also saw an Assassin's Creed Origins trailer there. We did see some gameplay at EA, but it didn't really, captivate me as much as I thought it would. But the trailer for AC Origins really was interesting and cool. They did do a demo for the game after the press conference finished, but I never watched it. But from what I've heard and from what I've seen, it looks really, really cool. I think I'm really, really am happy that Ubisoft finally did take a year off Assassin's Creed, and I hope that this becomes a bigger trend, like that they'll stop making these annual games and just take a year off, have some time to actually figure out, how to improve the games. Because I look at Assassin's Creed Origins, and you can see how much more effort has been put into this game with that extra year development. So much work has gone into it, and just looks so, so amazing. And then, of course, the final of the positives was, of course, South Park: The Fractured Butthole. I love The Stick of Truth, one of my favorite licensed games of all time, alongside, of course, Simpsons Hit and Run. But Stick of Truth was amazing. Fractured Butthole trailer was so funny, man. I was in stitches watching that trailer. It was so funny. I mean, I'm not even the biggest fan of South Park, but the game, just the humor in it is so great. And with that whole, Civil War / superhero movie theme that they're having in the game, just looks so cool. I really can't wait for that game. Definitely will be picking that up day one, because I just love the original, and from what I've seen of the Fractured Butthole, it looks just as good. The only real two problems I had with the Ubisoft press conferences were really two games that they showed off that I felt like they showed off the complete wrong aspects in, or I just didn't like at all. So the first one was Skull and Bones. This game is literally just Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag, naval combat, taken from that, put it into a game, you give it 4 online elements, and that's it. And it just seems like one of those games that everyone's going to be saying to me, oh damn, it's so amazing, you need to play this shit. And then 4 weeks later, they're like, oh, I don't play the game anymore, it's boring and it's repetitive. And the problem is that they've just literally built a game around one element from Assassin's Creed. You can't really do that, because it just really limits the gameplay. Like, the reason it works in Assassin's Creed is because you're not just around on the boat doing naval combat, you're around playing an Assassin's Creed game. The naval combat in that game just felt like a really, really well done addition to the game, whereas in this, it's just being based around this one element, and it just seems like that stereotypical game that will get boring over time. And I just felt like they show off the complete wrong aspects for it, because I've not seen one person so far that likes to look at that game, to be perfectly honest. And then the other one for me would be The Crew 2. They really fucked up with what they showed from that game. Like, the original Crew, I have played the original Crew, and I was really disappointed by it. It just lacked so much content. It just felt like you were driving between point A to point B, and there was barely anything to do within it. And the online missions and elements, they just felt the exact same. Drive through this thing, except it just looks slightly different. That's literally the whole of The Crew. And I do hope that they improve it with the Crew 2. I just hope they add a few more elements to the game to make it more replayable. But I felt like what the elements that they showed off here by, the fact you can use different vehicles such as boats and planes, I just felt like they completely focused on the wrong areas. They should have been focusing on the content in the game, not the vehicles you can fucking drive. It's just, they really messed up with what they showed of the Crew 2 at the press conference. So in terms of final score for Ubisoft, I would probably have to say around about a 6 out of 10 for me personally. I wasn't like tremendously blown away by the conference as a whole, mainly because of, like I said, of those two criticisms, but it was definitely better than the EA press conference. The only reason that it's only like 0.5 higher is because I did kind of feel like, similar to EA's, they were struggling a little bit for the games to show off, but I felt like the games that they actually showed off, they were more consistently good ones for me personally, and just what they showed off was really, really cool, and I just felt was a bit more memorable than what I saw at the EA press conference for me personally. And last but not least, we have the Sony press conference. Now, of course, Sony was probably the one that I was looking forward to the most, and it's the only one out of the 4 press conferences that I didn't watch live because, of course, of the time that it was on. It was on at like 2 a.m. Today, the Tuesday that I'm recording this video. So, yeah, I had to watch it at like 6 o'clock in the morning because I wanted to still watch it. I just didn't want to get spoiled in terms of what happened in the conference. And, yeah, I thought the conference was really, really good. It was definitely the best conference of E3 that I have seen. But I still had that nagging feeling at the end of my mind that it could have been so much better. It was still really, really great, but it was missing just one thing, which I'll get into in my negatives, that stopped it from being like a fantastic conference. So, kick things off with my positives. I have to mention this first because anybody who knows me knows that this is one of my favorite video games of all time. We got confirmation that we are finally getting a Shadow of the Colossus remaster. It's coming from Blue Point Games, who of course made the Uncharted, the Nathan Drake collection, which was of course a remaster of the first 3 Uncharted games. They are going to be remastering Shadow of the Colossus, and oh my god, when this announcement came through, when I was watching the conference, I was so happy. Unfortunately, I wasn't recording my reaction to it. But, oh my god, I was so happy because, I mean, this is easily my second favorite video game of all time. Just behind MGS4 for me personally. And Shadow Colossus, when I played it, was such an experience. And I'm so happy that not only this game is coming so I can play it on my PS4, but 2, so people who didn't play this game can witness this masterpiece. It is a phenomenal achievement in gaming. And there is a reason it's considered one of the best games of all time. So yeah, you need to buy this remaster when it comes out. It comes out, from what I remember, 2018. So yeah, keep your eyes out for it. You are going to love this game when you play it. The next one I have is Detroit Become Human. We saw another gameplay demo for that. It followed this character called Marcus, who is a android, similar to Connor and Kara that we have seen from the previous showcases of Detroit Become Human. And it was similar to last year's E3s with Connor, where it's, a scenario and it shows you all of the different ways that the scenario could have played out. And I thought it was really, really good. Very, very good and interesting. I mean, of course, it's Quantic Dream, David Cage. I love Quantic Dream as a studio. I love Heavy Rain. It's one of my favorite PS3 exclusives. Everybody knows I was disappointed with Beyond Two Souls. I do have hope with this that Cage has learned from his mistakes with Beyond Two Souls, and that this game will be more reminiscent of Heavy Rain, but also kind of feel like its own thing as well. So I really like the gameplay demo we saw of that. Very, very interesting. Like I said, I just love those kind of games where your choices have an impact and it's really strong on story. Then, of course, they ended the conference with Spider-Man, which has, of course, now gotten the official title of Marvel Spider-Man, which I think is a good title. I don't really know what else you could have really called it. I think it's just nice that they've gone with the simple title for the game. But the gameplay demo we saw was really cool. It was basically of Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, taking down members of Wilson Fisk's gang. And it was just really, really cool. I loved the gameplay for that. I've seen some people criticize the fact that it had a few quick time events in some sections, but to be honest with you, they don't really have a problem with that. I don't personally, for me, say. The only real times I have a problem with quick time events is if it's in something like a boss battle. But in these sections, I feel like it's done to increase the tension during that situation. I thought that the quick time events didn't bother me. They weren't anything amazing, but I didn't think it really brought down the gameplay demo for me personally. But yeah, I just really loved the look of that. I love Spider-Man, so of course I'm always going to be excited when a game of him is released, especially when it's a PS4 exclusive. Then of course I'm also had written down here Days Gone. I want to congratulate Sony Bent because this gameplay demo was leap and shoulders beyond what they showed last year at E3. It was so much better. Just from a technical standpoint, the graphics seemed way, way better. Definitely a lot more near completion. Just the gameplay demo in itself, I didn't really notice a whole lot of technical errors like I did with last year's. I thought overall this was just a way more polished demo, and I think Sony Bend can be proud of themselves because I really was happy with how this gameplay demo turned out. It really has made Days Gone a game that I really, really am interested in a lot more than I was last year. Of course, I also written down the God of War. We saw a bit of a trailer for that, which basically showed off snippets of gameplay. That looked really cool. I really am interested to play that, especially, I love the God of War trilogy and Ascension as well. So, yeah, the new God of War game definitely looks very interesting. I was surprised that we didn't get like a proper story trailer or a proper gameplay demo. We got kind of like a mixture of the two. But I was still happy with what we saw, and we also got confirmation that it's going to be coming out in early 2018, unlike other games. And I mean, in fact, Detroit didn't even get a release date, which was very, very surprising for me personally. But yeah, I'm happy that it's coming out early 2018. God of War. We had rumors that it could be coming out later this year, so maybe even a February release date, or a March release date, maybe, possibly. I don't know. Sooner the better, to be perfectly honest, because I really can't wait for this game and to see more of it. Hope we do see more of it at PSX later this year. And then the last game I have written down here is a game that kind of slipped under the radar for a lot of people, and it's a game called Hidden Agenda. It's made by Supermassive Games, who are, of course, the makers of Until Dawn. They did announce another game during the press conference, which I believe, from what I can remember, is a prequel to Until Dawn itself. But Hidden Agenda is something different. It's essentially similar to Until Dawn. It's based around a serial killer who sets traps to his victims that kills the first responding officers who come to help them. But it's a game that also incorporates, smartphone and just the smartphone device elements into the game. As an option, because you can play the game solo or you can play it with friends. And I thought that would look really interesting. When I originally heard, that it was going to include, mobile devices, I was like, I don't know how to feel about this. But when I saw it, I thought it was really, really cool looking. Of course, Katie Cassidy from Arrow, she's in this, which kind of caught me off guard. I had no clue that she was going to be starring in this, but all of a sudden I see her in the freaking gameplay trailer. I'm like, what the fuck? It's like Katie Cassidy. But yeah, that was really weird to see that. And this was actually in the pre-show, because I did watch the pre-show before I watched the press conference. And I really do wish they had put this in the press conference, because I thought it looked very interesting, to be perfectly honest. It definitely has my attention. Definitely something that I'll be looking out for. And funnily enough, this actually comes out at the end of the year. So yeah, definitely interested to see what Supermassive Games can do with this. Now, really, I only have one big problem with Sony's press conference. I mean, yeah, some people can say that the conference was a bit short, because it was literally just over an hour long, which is pretty short for Sony. But really, the only big issue I had with this conference was I really did think that the conference lacked that big new killer AAA title. No, I'm not talking about The Last of Us Part 2, because I know some people have been bitching and moaning at the fact that that wasn't at the conference. But for me personally, I can live without, The Last of Us Part 2 being there, because, this game isn't coming out until 2019. I have said this all along, and there have been people, saying to me in Twitter comment sections like, Dan, you idiot, it's not coming out, in 2019, it's coming out, next year, we're going to get gameplay at E3, Well, suck on the fact you saw nothing at this year's E3. And I kind of had a sneaking suspicion at the back of my mind that we wouldn't see anything at E3, but at the same time, I did want to see something, only because, I'm a massive Naughty Dog fan. I love the original The Last of Us, so the fanboy inside of me wanted to see something here. But I was happy that, and it was, I was content with the fact that we didn't see anything from them. I mean, we saw Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, which definitely looks interesting, even though when I originally watched it on the stream live back on Twitch, the audio for it was fucked up, so I had to go onto YouTube to watch it separately. But yeah, the trailer looked really cool, but that's going off topic now. Now, I want to talk about the negatives. I really wanted a big new AAA title announcement at this conference from Sony. Just one. That was all I was asking for. Just one big new announcement. And we didn't get anything. Like, sure, we got Shadow of the Colossus. But that's a freaking remaster. That's not a new AAA game. I mean, I'm talking about, From Software's new game. We know that they are working on a new game. Where is that? People saying it's Phantom Whale. Others saying it's Bloodborne 2. And then, what about Sucker Punch? That for what we know, they've been working on nothing since they finished production on Infamous First Light, which was, of course, the expansion to Infamous Second Son. So, what the hell have they been working on for almost, what is it now, 3 years? We know they're working on something. I mean, we had leaks just before E3 that they were working on a Western game. But, yeah, I mean, what the hell are they working on? I mean, I hope we get something by the end of this year, because otherwise it's going to make it freaking 4 years of just nothing from Sucker Punch. And I really do hope that they are, actually in production of a game, because I really do fear that they aren't working on anything at the moment. I mean, we surely should have seen something by now. So yeah, that definitely did surprise me, that there just wasn't one big AAA announcement, just a new game. That was all I needed. If I had this in this conference, I'd easily be giving this a 9 or a 9.5, easy. But with the lack of that, it just kind of felt like a bit of a predictable conference. There wasn't really any big, massive shocks other than Shadow of the Colossus, but we'd already had leaks and rumors beforehand that was coming, and I've already played Shadow of the Colossus, so obviously it's not as big of a deal to me, because I've already played it, but of course I will buy it, because, Shadow of the Colossus fanboy here speaking. But yeah, I just wish they had that big AAA game. So, in terms of a final score for Sony's press conference, I'd give it an 8.5. I already stated. If it just had one big new AAA game, I would easily give it a 9, without a doubt. But an 8.5 I think is reasonable for the conference and from what they showed. And I still think they definitely had the best conference. I just felt like it could have been, just a little bit better. Now I'm going to talk about 2 games from Bethesda's press conference. I didn't talk about Bethesda's press conference because, like I said, I haven't watched the press conference still. And from what I heard, it wasn't that great. It was literally only about less than 40 minutes long. But there was 2 games that I wanted to talk about that they showed off there. And it was actually the 2 new announcements that they had. So the first one was The Evil Within 2. I'm actually quite interested in this because I really liked the original Evil Within. So it was a very cool game. The only real issue I had with it was the awful frame rate. Like, most of the game, you were playing it at 20 frames per second. And the, cinematic black bars at the top and bottom of the screen really pissed me off because, I just don't enjoy them in games. I mean, I didn't like them in the Order 1886. I certainly didn't like them in The Evil Within. But the trailer they showed off for it were very, very dark and cinematic. Very, very interesting to see what they can do with that. And then, of course, the other one was a sequel to Wolfenstein: The New Order. I can't exactly remember what the name of the sequel is. I can't remember at all. I'm not going to try and say the name of the sequel. Just let me know in the comment section what it is. I mean, like I said, you got to give me credit here. I haven't even seen the fucking conference. So I really like the trailer that they showed off for that. Very interesting. I mean, I think Wolfenstein really is an underrated game from this gen. I would definitely recommend you go and play it if you saw, the announcement for the sequel and you're like, I'm interested. Play Wolfenstein: The New Order. It's a great game. And with that, that's pretty much everything I have to say about E3 2017. So, in terms of talking about E3 as a whole, I thought it was good. Overall, I did think it was better than last year's, only because I felt like EA, Microsoft, and Ubisoft and Bethesda last year never showed up. Their conferences were all awful to mediocre for me personally. Sony was literally the only saving grace in some parts of the Ubisoft from last year. So I think overall this year was definitely better. My real disappointment just came with the Sony press conference. But I mean, last year's conference was a freaking 10 out of 10. Easy. It was an easy 10 out of 10 last year's conference and I didn't really think that they could outdo it. And they almost would have lived up to my expectations had they just had, like I said, that one big AAA announcement. But overall, I thought this year's E3 was good. Like I said, maybe not as big as last year's, but I felt just in general it was a lot more consistent. As a result, as a whole, I think I did enjoy it a little bit more than last year's E3. So with that being said, I'd like to thank you all very much for watching my very, very long review of E3 2017. I hope you had something to eat and drink throughout the remaining of the whole video, because I mean, right now I'm looking at the freaking Audacity recording and it's going to freaking 32 minutes long. So yeah, easily one of the longest videos I've ever made. So with that being said, I'd like to thank you all very much for watching my review of E3 this year. Hope you all enjoyed, and if you want to see something similar to this for E3 next year, or for even PSX later on this year, then please let me know in the comment section down below. With that being said, I'd like to thank you all very much for watching the video, and I hope to see you again next time.